I played 3 games with every operator in Rainbow Six Siege, and this is what happened. Just letting you know, this video is going to be absolutely full of stats, so if you don't like stats, get out. But I'm just going to start this off by saying this is my second attempt at doing this series, and I managed to finish it this time. The first time was a very long time ago.
Someone else in Cigar.
Yeah, on ping? Yeah, Cigar right now, right now.
So as I was saying, the first series I didn't manage to finish, so I wanted to restart it, seeing as I am getting back into Siege again, and I have a lot of free time on my hands. So I also decided to do loads of stats along with it, so that's what this video is. The series didn't have a very good start because in my first 15 games I somehow only managed to win 3. So it was a bit slow to start off, but as the series was going on, I decided to come up with my own point system and find out who my best operators were. I won't bore you on all the details, but I gave so many points for a kill, so many points for a win, like what my position was on the team, how many points I got in the game, that sort of stuff. And that's how I managed to figure out, like, my best and worst operators. And I think I wanted to do this because I don't really have any mains at the moment, and I kind of wanted to get an idea of who my best operators were. So towards the end of the series I came up with this idea of doing a second and third part where I use my top 10 operators and then find out who the top 5 best are, and then from there I can find out who my best operators are. So once I uploaded every video, I had a look at the stats and I was able to rank every operator from best to worst using my complicated point system. So here it is. Okay, here are the points I got for each operator, so just to get an idea, Sledge and Smoke, that's game 1, that is -1 point. The highest one you can see there is Buck and Frost, that is 62 points. And that really low one you can see is Dokkaebi and Vigil at -19. I'll show you a list of the top 10 right now. So these are the top 10, and they're actually quite important because these are the 10 I will be using in the next part of the video. So I'm going to be doing 3 games again with these 10 pairs, and from there I'll find the top 5. But just looking at the points here, Buck and Frost is quite a way ahead of all the rest, and reasons for that include, like, I won all 3 games, I got MVP in one of them, I went 7-0 one game, 7-4 in another one. The other one I went 3-2, which is still positive. Like, I got over 4,000 points in 2 of them as well, so that kind of stuff is the reason why some of these are higher. Buck and Frost just happen to be much better than the rest. And I still can't believe now that Monty and Rook are second. Like, Monty, I suck with shields, I never use them. And I still can't understand how Fuse and Tachanka scraped into the top 10. In the 3 games, I got a total of 5 kills. 5! But anyway, here's the top 10 one more time. I will be referring to these 10 throughout the rest of the video. Let's get on to some proper stats now. Here's just one more look at the score I gave each of the operators, but this time from best to worst, and you can really see just how bad Twitch and Doc and Dokkaebi and Vigil are. Like, after Twitch and Doc, I literally went out and bought a new controller, and then after Dokkaebi and Vigil, I think I had about a 2-week break, so they were not fun games. But anyway, moving on to the wins. Obviously there's not much variety in how many wins I got with each operator because it's either 0, 1, 2 or 3. But you can see there's 3 operators I got 3 wins with. Buck and Frost, Fuse and Tachanka and Monty and Rook, all of which are going through to the next round. They were in the top 10. All the rest I got 2 wins with, except Jackal and Mira. They're the only ones in the top 10 where I only got 1 win. Because there were so many in the 2-win category, it often came down to the kills that decided who was making it in to the top 10. So, here are the kills now. This graph is actually quite surprising when you first look at it, because the highest amount of kills I got was 21, with Osa and Thorn, who didn't even make it into the top 10. You'll notice right behind them is Jackal and Mira, where I got 20 kills, which explains how they got through to the top 10 with only 1 win. Looking down the opposite end of the graph, we can see Fuse and Tachanka and Hibana and Echo. And when looking at this graph, that's what made me realize, what the hell are Fuse and Tachanka doing in the top 10? I got my lowest kills with them. I even somehow managed to get less kills than with Twitch and Doc, and this is pretty much how those games went down. Oh, my aim, I just can't aim. But looking back at the graph, 9 out of the top 10 were in this range for kills, and obviously the odd one out was Fuse and Tachanka with only 5 kills. But then you might be wondering, how the hell did Osa and Thorn not make it into the top 10? Well, the answer comes from the deaths. Now don't get this graph confused with the kills, because on this one, the right side of the graph is the better side, because less deaths is obviously better. And this can be a good explanation for why Fuse and Tachanka did make it into the top 10, because they have the second lowest deaths at only 5 deaths in total. But then you also might notice down the other end that Osa and Thorn... Shut up! This graph also explains why Osa and Thorn didn't make it into the top 10. Despite me getting my highest kills with them, I also got my most deaths with them as well at 17. My second of the 3 games with Osa and Thorn also turned out to be my highest kill and highest death game, where I went 11 and 8. So after Osa and Thorn, who got 21 kills, we have Jackal and Mirror at 20 kills, IQ and Bandit at 19, and Buck and Frost at 17. And in total I got 362 kills in the 99 games, which is an average of 3.66 per game. And looking at the deaths, the 3 lowest was Buck and Frost and Amaru and Goyo, both on 6 deaths, Fuse and Tachanka on 5 deaths, and Monty and Rook on 2 deaths. So those 4 pairs all made it into the top 10. I finished with a total of 342 deaths, which was an average of 3.45 per game. Just talking about averages made me realize I forgot to talk about the average score I got per operators, which ended up being 19.03. And because my memory is terrible, I also forgot to include some stats about the wins. So in the 99 games, I won 49 and lost 50, which ended up being a win percentage of 49.49%, and I averaged 1.48 wins per operator. After finishing the series and looking back on the stats, it was actually the KD, which is the next stat I'm about to show, that revealed to me how badly I actually did in these 99 games. As of the latest season, my KD is 1.3, and in this series, I got a KD of 1.06, which is not the best. Anyway, here's the graph for the KDs I got with each operator, and as you can see, most of them are around the same, and... Oh. Well, at first a 5 KD might look quite good, but in total over the 3 games, I only went 10 and 2 with Monty and Rook, so it's not that impressive. But you probably can already guess what the bottom 3 KDs are. So yes, those bottom 3 KDs were Twitch and Doc 0.58, Hibana and Echo 0.5, and Dokkaebi and Vigil with an absolutely massive 0.4 KD. Looking at the good end of the graph, you can see that my top 9 KDs all made it into my top 10. And then there's just Fuse and Tachanka who, as per usual, are nowhere near all the rest. But anyway, my top 3 KDs came from Ace and Melusi with 1.88, Buck and Frost with 2.83, and Monty and Rook with 5. Alright, moving on to the assists, and we can see from this graph that they range from 0 all the way up to 7 assists in total, with Capitao and Kavira being the only ones on 0, and IQ and Bandit with a total of 7 assists. In total, over the 99 games, I got 101 assists, which is an average of 1.02 per game, and an average of 3.06 per operator pair. Looking back at the graph, this range shows that only 5 out of my top 10 operator pairs had 4 or more assists in total, which shows that assists didn't really have an effect on the score I gave each operator pair. Like Ace and Melusi, who came 4th overall, I only got 3 assists in total over the 3 games. The next stat is the points I got for each operator in each game. In total, I got 253,868 points over the 99 games, which is an average of 2,564 per game, or 7,693 per operator pair. The lowest of the total points came from Twitch and Doc with 2,658, which is an average of only 886 points per game. An absolute shocker from Twitch and Doc. The next lowest was Dokkaebi and Vigil with 3,625 points in total, which is an average of 1,208 per game, and Thermite and Pulse with a total of 4,722 points, which is an average of 1,574 per game. Looking at the better end, Monty and Rook finished third with a total of 10,950 points, which is an average of 3,650 per game. In second is IQ and Bandit with a total of 11,220 points, which is an average of 3,740 per game. And on top, we have Buck and Frost with a total of 11,773 points, which is an average of 3,924 per game, which is over 4 times bigger than Twitch and Doc. This is one of the only stats where Fuse and Tachanka actually did well compared to the other top 10, and instead it was Amaru and Goyo who fell behind. The next stat we'll be looking at is my average position on the team with each operator, which is just whether I finished 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th or 5th on my team. Over the whole 99 games, my average position was just under 3rd at 2.98. Here's the graph for the average position on my team with each operator pair. As you can see, the best is 1 1/3 and the worst is 4 1/3. And I haven't shown the operators yet, because I want you to try and guess who you think the worst one would be. I have double and triple checked my score that I gave every operator, and I still don't understand how Fuse and Tachanka made the top 10. It just baffles me. But anyway, having another look back at the graphs so we can see how the other 9 of the top 10 did. And we can now see that the best average position actually went to Osa and Thorn with 1 1/3, who didn't even make it into the top 10. This range shows everyone I got an average position of 3rd or better with, and 8 of my top 10 are within this range, with only Amaru and Goyo and Fuse and Tachanka outside of it. But looking at the best for positions, Osa and Thorn, I already said, had 1 1/3 average position, which means I came first, and second. Then looking at my top 10, we have Jackal and Mira, and Ayana and Oryx, both finishing 1st, 2nd, and 2nd. And then looking down the worst end, we've got Fuse and Tachanka, where I finished 4th, and 5th. The next lot of stats we'll be looking at is everything to do with the maps. And also I might just add before looking at the graph that the majority of these 99 games were played in the season where Nighthaven Labs wasn't introduced yet, which is why I only have 1 game on that map. But anyway, the map I played on the most was Bank at 13 games in total. Second highest was Clubhouse on 12, and third highest was Coastline with 9 games. And although I didn't keep track of which maps were banned the most, I think this graph shows like what my favorite map was and kind of indicates as to what maps were banned the most. I think Skyscraper has to be my least favorite map, and this shows because I only have the 2 games on it, and Favela also with 2, and Emerald Plains and Stadium are still pretty bad maps, and I only have 4 games on each of those. And after 3 years of playing this game, I still think Cafe Dostoevsky is my favourite map, so I was a bit disappointed to see only 5 games in the whole series played on Cafe, with 3 of them coming in at games 96, 98 and 99. And across those 99 games, I played an average of 5.82 times on each map. And now moving on to how many wins I got on each map, and it's no surprise that Clubhouse and Bank are the top 2, considering I played 13 games on Bank and 12 on Clubhouse. I finished with 6 wins in Clubhouse and 5 wins in Bank, but Border was a bit of a surprise, as I only played 5 games on that map, and won 4 of them.
And now just having a very quick look at how many losses I got on each map. You can see that Bank, Clubhouse and Coastline are in the top 3 yet again, with Bank finishing on 8 losses, Clubhouse on 6 losses, and Coastline on 5 losses, which is actually equal with Outback. But the reason why I skipped through that is so I can get to the map win percentages, which is more interesting because the amount of games doesn't matter at all. So we can see here that it's actually Border is my number 1 map, finishing on an 80% win rate, and Emerald Plains, the absolute garbage piece of crap of a map, finishing in second, with Stadium of all maps on 75% win rate. And Nighthaven Labs, yes, I only played 1 game on it, and I lost, so that does have my worst win percentage. But I think it's only fair to give my worst map to Outback with a 29% win rate. I played 7 games on that map, and only won 2. And the next stat I'm going to be looking at, I need to do a bit of explaining for, because it's kills per round per map. You can't just look at how many kills I got, like, on each map. Because, for example, well, Bank, I played, like, 13 games on, so obviously I'm going to have the most kills on that map. So you can't look at that. So what I did is I added up how many rounds I played on each map, then figured out how many kills I got on each map, and then figured out the kills per round, so that it's more of a ratio rather than an amount. And if that still doesn't mean anything to you, just take a look at the graph. So this basically shows what my best map is in terms of kills. So you can see here that it's actually Canal. I averaged 0.89 kills per round on Canal, which is almost 1 every round. And it's actually Stadium and Theme Park where I have my worst kills per round, sitting at 0.41 on each of those maps. And now looking at the deaths per round per map, I don't need to explain it, it works the same as the kills, but this is really going to show what my worst maps are. Despite having the worst kills per round, Theme Park actually has my best deaths per round on the right hand side, with only 0.44 deaths per round, which basically means I got no kills per round and no deaths per round on Theme Park. I did nothing on Theme Park. So Theme Park and Border are equal on 0.44 deaths per round. And then looking at the worst end, which is on the left, Outback. Oh, Outback. 0.69 deaths per round on Outback. Absolutely terrible. Oh, look at this perfect timing. Now we can watch this terrible clip of me using Finker. I think it's Echo on the stairs. Yep. Why did I have to watch that back? Anyway, back on with the stats. Stop playing this. Stop. Alright, good. Moving on. So this next stat I actually find quite interesting because it looks at how long each game went for based on how many rounds it was. So here's the graph. So only paying attention to the maps where I played 5 or more games on, because Nighthaven Labs I only played 1 game on and it was 8 rounds long. But anyway, Canal was actually my longest average game time at 6.86 rounds on average every time I played Canal. And it was Cafe coming in at the lowest with only 5 rounds per game on average. Just one thing to note before the next stat is that between all of these 99 games, I did play just regular ranked games where I didn't use particular operators, I just used whoever I want. So overall, in the first 74 games, which were played in Year 7 Season 3, Brutal Swarm, I got minus 29 MMR overall. So here's the graph to show that. There's not really much to look at here on this graph, because really it's just going up and down for each loss and win, back and forth. But what it does kind of show is how at the start of a season, you know, you lose minus 60 for a loss and you gain 60 for a win. And as the season goes on, those numbers get smaller, 40 for a win, minus 40 for a loss. But the graph actually looks quite different for Year 7 Season 4 Solar Raid, which was the last 25 games of the series, because obviously the ranked system changed. So overall I gained 740 ranked points, which is so different compared to the minus 29 MMR in the first 74 games. So here's the graph for the new system. Why do I keep showing these crap clips? Now I want to watch this and see how bad I am. Good, I died. Moving on. Let's look at the graph. No, I don't want to watch this replay. Hurry up. Ha ha ha, I died. Graph. So at the time of recording this, I've played about 250 games this season. So looking back at the start of the season, which is when I was doing this series, it's crazy to think that I was gaining 80 for a win and only losing about 10 for every loss. So this looks very different to the MMR. So this next graph, which shows my rank over time, should be easy to follow if I wasn't such an idiot and used numbers instead of words. So instead of saying like silver 4, silver 5, silver 3, I don't know why I said it in that order, but anyway, instead of saying like silver 1, 2, and 3, I've decided just to put numbers. So there's a little key on the left, so hopefully you understand. I'm just going to show you the graph. Ooh, Vigil. So let me just explain this graph to you because I'm such an idiot. So those bottom 5, where there's no data at all, is copper 1 to copper 5. And then the middle 5 is the bronzes, and those top 5 between 10 and 15 is silver. So you can see the majority of it is between like bronze 1 and silver 3. That's where the majority of this graph is. And this is just for, what's the season called? Brutal Swarm, Year 7 Season 3. So this graph is just for the first 74 games. And as you can expect, the graph for Year 7 Season 4, Solar Raid, obviously looks a lot different, because I started in Copper 5, and it decides to give you 1,000 points for every win, and literally takes off nothing for every loss. So I'm just going to shut up. Here's the graph. So yes, this graph is more of a staircase shape, and as you can see, in these 25 games, I don't actually drop a rank at all. I stay in the same rank here and there, but it's pretty much only gaining ranks. So obviously, yes, I start in, what's that, Copper 5, and I think I finished in... I can't read this graph because I'm using numbers instead of words, you idiot. What is that? That's like Bronze 2, I think I finished in. And moving on to something that's quite difficult to actually know of when watching these videos, is how many games I played each day. So this next graph I show you is, I just said it, why am I repeating myself? How many games I played each day. This graph is only just now making me realize how long I've spent on this series. I started making this video on Christmas Day, and it's now the 6th of January 2023. But I started filming that Sledge and Smoke video all the way back on the 3rd of November, over 2 months ago. But you can see here that the most games I played in a day was 10, and that really long gap between the middle of November and the start of December was after Dokkaebi and Vigil, I think, because I just had some really crap games with them.
I can't, I'm surrendering. I can't be bothered. Like, 0-4, I can't play this game anymore. Why am I using the boss bloody G? Oh, I'm so bad! I can't play this game anymore.
So yes, that explains that really big gap in the middle. But looking back at the graph, you can see that everything to the right of this arrow was Year 7 Season 4, so the new season. So you can see how tightly packed those 4 columns are, which are the 25 games I managed to pack into the space of only 4 days in Solar Raid. And moving on to the next stat, we're going to be looking at the number of rounds I played with each operator, which doesn't really have an effect on the overall stats. Because yes, if I play more rounds with a particular operator, I have the potential to get more kills, but I also have the potential to get more deaths, so this doesn't really have an effect on how good I did with each operator, but it's interesting anyway. So here's the graph for how many rounds I played with each operator, and you can see that on top we have IQ and Bandit with a total of 26 rounds over the 3 games. And in second we have a tie between Jackal and Mira and Osa and Thorn with a total of 23 rounds over the 3 games. And looking down the other end, we can see there's quite a few who have 15 rounds in total, but last place has to go to Maverick and Clash with a total of only 14 rounds. So just looking at the 26 rounds with IQ and Bandit, that's almost the maximum number of rounds you can have in 3 games, which is 27. So with IQ and Bandit, I had a 5-4 win, a 5-4 win, and then a 5-3 loss. And then with Maverick and Clash, I played only about half the amount of rounds I did with IQ and Bandit. So I had a 4-1 loss, a 4-1 loss, and then a 4-0 win with Maverick and Clash. Only 14 rounds total. But over the course of the whole series, I played 587 rounds, which is an average of 17.79 per operator pair, and an average of 5.93 per game. The most common score was actually a tie between 4-1 and 4-2. And just quickly, here's a graph for the average number of rounds per game for each operator pair. So moving on to the next stat, we're going to be looking at kills per round, but for the operators this time. So here's the graph. So 6 out of my top 10 operator pairs got 0.7 kills per round or more. And we can see that first place goes to Buck and Frost with 0.94 kills per round, which is almost 1 kill every round. And I'm not even surprised to see Fuse and Tachanka right down the other end of the graph, tied with Hibana and Echo on 0.31 kills per round, which is roughly 1 kill every 3 rounds. Just in case you blinked in the last 2 seconds, I've now switched to the deaths per round for each operator pair, and the better side is on the right. So looking at the left side, we can see Dokkaebi and Vigil finished with the worst deaths per round at 0.88 deaths per round, which is almost dying every single round. And on the better end, we can see Monty and Rook finished with a 0.13 deaths per round, which basically means I didn't die, like barely any deaths. And for some reason, Fuse and Tachanka actually did good in this one. Within this range, you'll see all of my top 10 operator pairs, with Ayana and Oryx performing the worst with a 0.58 kills per round. And that's kind of all the general stats finished now. The rest of the stats, there's no graphs to go with it. I'm just going to do them quick fire, because there's a lot to get through, so here they are. And some of these stats I might have already mentioned a little bit earlier in the video. But anyway, let's begin. I played 74 games in Year 7 Season 3, which was Brutal Swarm, and 25 games in Year 7 Season 4, which was Solar Raid. Obviously in ranked, games can be 4, 5, 6, 8, or 9 rounds, so the number of games with 4 rounds was 18, the number of games with 5 rounds was 29, the number of games with 6 rounds was also 29, the number of games with 8 rounds was 11, and the number of games with 9 rounds was 12. Across the 99 games, a total of 23 games went to overtime, which is a 23.23% chance of going to overtime. And in those 23 games, I won 13 and lost 10. So my win percentage in overtime was 56.52%, and 26.53% of all my wins across the series were overtime. If a game went to overtime, it had a slightly higher chance of being 9 rounds instead of 8, with a 52.17% chance of being 9 rounds. Now moving on to the maps and their overtime stats. So Nighthaven Labs actually had the highest percentage of going to overtime at 100%. However, I did only play 1 game on that map. So the next highest is Canal, with 57% of games going to overtime, which was then followed by Emerald Plains and Theme Park, both with 50% chance of going to overtime. Then Villa, with a 33% chance of going to overtime. Outback, with a 29% chance of going to overtime. Stadium, with a 25% chance of going to overtime. Bank, with a 23% chance of going to overtime. Then Border, Chalet, and Consulate, all with a 20% chance of going to overtime. Oregon, with a 17% chance of going to overtime. And Clubhouse with only 8% chance of going to overtime. And then Coastline, Favela, Cafe, and Skyscraper all had a 0% chance of going to overtime. I didn't have a single overtime game on those maps. So out of all my 4-0 games, 7 of them were wins and 11 of them were losses, meaning my 4-0 win rate was 38.89%. Then out of all my 4-1 games, 13 of them were wins and 16 of them were losses, meaning my 4-1 win rate was 44.83%. Out of all my 4-2 games, 16 of them were wins and 13 of them were losses, meaning my 4-2 win rate was 55.17%. Out of all my 5-3 games, 7 of them were wins and 4 of them were losses, meaning my 5-3 win rate was 63.64%. Out of all my 5-4 games, 6 of them were wins and 6 of them were losses, meaning my 5-4 win rate was 50%. My longest streak of games going to overtime was only 3, but this occurred twice in the series. The first time was all 3 of the IQ and Bandit games, and then the second time it happened was between Osa and Thorn and Sense and Azami. My longest streak without overtime was 9 games, and that was between Blackbeard and Valkyrie and Hibana and Echo. My longest winning streak was 7 games, and that was between Glaz and Kampken and Blitz and Jaeger. My longest losing streak was 6 games, and that was between Thermite and Pulse and Twitch and Doc. Out of my first 15 games of the series, I only won 3 times. And in the 21 games, starting at Monty and Rook and ending at Blackbeard and Valkyrie, I only lost 4 times. That's winning 17 out of 21. In the first 33 games, I won 18 times, and in the last 33 games, I also won 18 times. However, it was the middle 33 games where I performed my worst, winning only 13 out of 33 games. My highest kill game went to Osa and Thorn on Border, where I got 11 kills, and that was a loss. However, my highest kill win was with Nook and Warden with 9 kills on Canal, and they're in the top 10, along with IQ and Bandit, who also got 9 kills, however that was a loss on Canal, and Thermite and Pulse, who were nowhere near the top 10, also had a 9 kill game, but that was a loss on Villa. Throughout the series, I had 6 games where I got 0 kills. One of them coming from Twitch and Doc, which was a loss on Outback. Monty and Rook, who made the top 10, had a 0 kill game on Theme Park, which was a win. Blackbeard and Valkyrie, another 0 kill game, where I won on Clubhouse. Dokkaebi and Vigil, 0 kill game on Clubhouse, which was a loss. Amaru and Goyo also made the top 10, and I had a 0 kill game with them on Consulate, which was a win. And lastly, Sense and Azami, another 0 kill game on Cafe, which was a loss. Throughout the 99 games, I had 5 games where I got 0 deaths. 2 of them came from Monty and Rook, the first being a win on Consulate, and the second being a win on Theme Park, which I also got 0 kills in. Then there was Buck and Frost, another 0 death game on Canal, which was a win. Hibana and Echo, a 0 death game on Oregon, which was a win. And Zafia and Ella, a 0 death game on Cafe, which was a win. So when I talk about going positive, I mean a game where I got more kills than deaths, but for this stat I'm also going to include a 1 KD as being positive, meaning I got the same amount of kills and deaths. So anyway, the stat is, the number of games where I went positive was 53 out of 99, which is not very good at all. The most assists I got in a game came from a loss on Bank, where I got 5 assists, and that was with Kali and Wamai. My longest streak of getting at least 1 assist in a game was 9 games, and that started at Asa Malusi and went to Osa and Thorn. My longest streak of getting 0 assists in a game was 4 games, and that started at Blackbeard and Valkyrie and went to Capitao and Kavira. My worst game overall was 450 points, and that was with Twitch and Doc. It was a 4-1 loss on Outback. I got 0 kills, 0 assists, and 4 deaths. However, I'm unsure about the 450 points because my game crashed and I lost the recording, so that's just a rough guess. If that is incorrect, then my next worst game is 530 points, and that was a 4-0 loss on Clubhouse with Dokkaebi and Vigil, where I got 0 kills, 0 assists, and 4 deaths. My best game in the series has to be my 4,750 point game with Jackal and Mirror, which was a 5-4 win on Bank, and I got 6 kills, 4 assists, and 4 deaths. The amount of points I got in this game is roughly equivalent to the amount of points I got in my worst 7 games combined. The number of games under 1,000 points was 11, the number of games above 4,000 points was 14, the game where I got my median points, and all that means is that if I were to line up all my games from lowest to highest points, this one would be right in the middle. And that number is 2,622 points. And that was a 5-3 loss on Canal with IQ and Bandit, where I got 9 kills, 2 assists, and 4 deaths. This was also my loss with the highest amount of points. My win with the lowest amount of points was 3,014, and this was a 4-1 win on Clubhouse with Blackbeard and Valkyrie. I had 0 kills, 1 assist, and 2 deaths. Because my highest point loss was 2,622, and my lowest point win was 3,014, this means that all my wins had more points than all my losses, which is pretty expected anyway. So the difference between my worst win and best loss was only 392 points. Throughout the 99 games, I got 2 games with the same points happen 4 times. Once was with 3,590 points with Lion and Maestro and Sledge and Smoke. Then again on 1,375 points with Ashen Castle and Nomad and Kaid. Then with 1,145 points with Lion and Maestro and Thatcher and Mute. And then 1,065 points with Glaz and Kapkan and Sledge and Smoke. Across the 99 games, I came first on my team 13 times. However, 11 of those games were losses, so I only got MVP twice in the whole series. The first time coming from Buck and Frost, which was on Canal, where I got 7 kills, 2 assists, and 0 deaths. And the second game came from Gridlock and Mozzie, which was on Border, where I got 5 kills, 1 assist, and 3 deaths. I think I might have mentioned this earlier, but my worst map I figured out was Outback. This is only talking about the games that I played at least 5 matches on. So Outback is my worst because it has a 29% win rate, 0.51 kills per round, and 0.69 deaths per round. Border would have to be my best map because I had an 80% win rate, 0.85 kills per round, and 0.44 deaths per round. My Brutal Swarm win rate was 50%, and my Solar Raid win rate was 48%. I started the series on the 3rd of November and finished on the 10th of December, which was 38 days. However, I only spent 18 of those days on the series itself, and I had 20 days where I didn't do anything at all. The most consecutive days played was 9 from the 3rd of November to the 11th of November. The longest period without playing was 17 days, and the most games in one day was 10 on the 5th of December. Now I have 10 achievements which I need to give to the operator pairs, and the first one is the highest score I gave, which is my complicated point system that I awarded for like kills, wins, and all that stuff. So that went to Buck and Frost, which was 62 points. The next achievement goes to most wins, which was a 3-way tie between Buck and Frost, Monty and Rook, and Fuse and Tachanka with 3 wins. The next achievement is the highest kills overall, which goes to Osa and Thorn with 21 kills. The fewest deaths overall went to Monty and Rook with 2. The best KD overall also goes to Monty and Rook with 5. The highest assists overall goes to IQ and Bandit with 7. The highest average points per game goes to Buck and Frost with 3,924. The highest average position on the team goes to Osa and Thorn with a 1 1/3 average position. The highest average kills per round goes to Buck and Frost with 0.94. And the lowest average deaths per round goes to Monty and Rook with 0.13 deaths per round. After looking at the achievements, we can see that Fuse and Tachanka and IQ and Bandit have 1 achievement each. Then Osa and Thorn have 2 achievements, and then Buck and Frost and Monty and Rook have 4 achievements each, meaning they're my best operator pairs. Now looking at the opposite end, I don't know what the opposite of an achievement is. I think it's a punishment, but I'm not giving these operators any punishments. But anyway, it's a bad achievement. So my lowest score from my point system goes to Dokkaebi and Vigil with -19. Most losses goes to Osa and Thorn, Thermite and Pulse, Nomad and Kaid, Twitch and Doc, and Dokkaebi and Vigil, where I lost all 3 games. The fewest kills overall goes to Fuse and Tachanka and Tabana and Echo, both with 5 kills overall. The highest deaths overall goes to Osa and Thorn with 17. The worst KD overall goes to Dokkaebi and Vigil with 0.4. The lowest assists overall goes to Capitao and Kavira with 0. The lowest average points per game goes to Twitch and Doc with 886. The lowest average position on my team was Fusion Tachanka with 4 1/3 average position. The lowest average kills per round goes to Fusion Tachanka and Hibana and Echo with 0.31. The highest average deaths per round was Dokkaebi and Vigil with 0.88. Coming in with 1 negative achievement each, we have Therma and Pulse, Nomad and Kaid, and Capitao and Kavira. And coming in with 2 negative achievements, we have Osa and Thorn, Hibana and Echo, and Twitch and Doc. And coming in with 3 negative achievements, despite making it into the top 10, we have Fuse and Tachanka. And coming in with a massive 4 negative achievements, my worst operator pair of the series goes to Dokkaebi and Vigil. So that is actually it for all the stats for the series, but I'm just going to finish off with some of my opinions. Like, I thought the most obvious operators to make the top 10 were Ace and Melusi, Iana and Oryx, and Jackal and Mira, and they did. However, there were some operators who I thought would make the top 10, but didn't. And this includes Glaz and Kapkan, Finker and Alibi, Ying and Lesion, Nomad and Kaid, and Thatcher and Mute. I really thought they'd make the top 10. The operators that surprised me the most were Osa and Thorn. Despite not making the top 10, I think I did quite well with them. 21 kills overall. I did not expect my highest kills to go to Osa and Thorn. Very surprised. And I still don't understand how Fusion Tachanka got to the top 10. I got a total of 5 kills over the 3 games. KD of 1, which is okay, but I had plenty that were better. Average position, 4 1/3. I finished 4th, and 5th. And my average kills per round, 0.31. I don't understand how they got top 10, but they did. And who I think will end up being my best operator pair in parts 2 and 3 overall, I think it'll be Iana and Oryx. And my predictions for the top 5 are Ace and Melusi, Buck and Frost, Gridlock and Mozzie, Iana and Oryx, and Nook and Warden. Now that's it for this video, but this series isn't over yet, as I'm going to be playing 3 games with those top 10 operator pairs again, so then I can find my top 5, and then eventually find who my best operator pair is.